So that electric Dirtsurfer backpacking trip kind of went off the rails. As it turns out, a Dirtsurfer is not a really great platform for long distance riding. I knew going into it that these things would take a lot of skill to ride, but that really starts to actually wear you down over longer distances, right in the calf muscles. I should have been smarter about it. I should have realized how much it was going to stress my legs over long distance. And like I've explained in previous videos, the slower you go, the less stable it is, so it taxes your legs even more. So on a trail you're not familiar with, when there's a lot of twists and turns and you don't know what's around the bend, you have to go slow, especially with lots of road crossings and sidewalks, which also makes you have to stop a lot, which is a problem because of the way that I have to actually hold on to something and push off in order to get going and get enough momentum to be stable. I haven't mastered the art of push starts from a standstill on flat open ground, so I would always have to find something that I could push off from, whether that be a post or a fence or a wall. And when you're out on a gravel rail trail, sometimes there isn't anything that you can hold on to. And it's made even worse in places like cities where for the most part you can't even ride because of how often you have to stop and start again. I took to just picking up the Dirtsurfer and wheeling it around while I was in city limits, which was a drastic slowdown. And because it only has a 36-volt hub motor, it doesn't have a lot of torque, which means that when I do start it up, I really have to give it a solid push start off of something in order to get enough balance to stay stable. But that low torque also means that it's really difficult, if not impossible, to start on grass and dirt and anything that really provides a lot of resistance to the board. I didn't capture it in the actual trip video, but there was some times I tried to push start on some grass and I just couldn't get going fast enough to actually maintain stability. And so I would have to give up, find somewhere else to kick off from and carry on. It sounds like I'm trash talking the Dirtsurfer, but no, the problem was actually me and having like no durability whatsoever with being able to ride this thing for a long distance. The Dirtsurfer itself, for what it was built with, actually performed flawlessly. It itself did not give me any issues. It got the range I was expecting, especially considering the cold temperature on the second day. It didn't stutter, it didn't have any communication issues with the remote. It performed exactly as it should have. But aside from all the stopping and starting, when it comes to the gravel rail trails, it did exactly what I was hoping. It ate up the miles of the gravel rail trail. And I feel like the problems I encountered on this trip could have been prevented if I had have actually taken it for a few more spins locally first. I could have done a simple overnight backpacking trip locally to get used to riding it for, some actually longer distances before I bite off a piece of the TCT on an electric vehicle that I've never used before. Going forward, I'm going to avoid these two-wheel inline board type vehicles. It's given me a new criteria for what a backpacking electric rideable has to be. It has to be able to be perfectly stable at an absolute standstill. It's not something you really think a lot about until you're actually out there trying to do one of these trips. So I'll be shifting to more stable platforms like an all-terrain electric skateboard. I have an off-road electric scooter I'm looking at, and I also have a more portable e-bike that I'm looking at. So just to be clear, I'm not retiring the electric Dirtsurfer. It's just not going to be used on standalone backpacking trips. It's going to be relegated to a companion piece for EV camping trips, like with my Model 3 and in the future, the Cybertruck. The electric Dirtsurfer is definitely a vehicle that takes a lot of practice to be able to ride long distances. It takes a lot of skill to learn how to ride in the first place. It was definitely a cool project, and even though it ended in abject failure, I don't regret taking it out on this backpacking trip because, if I'm not mistaken, I think this was the world's first ever attempted backpacking trip on an electric Dirtsurfer. So definitely some lessons learned on this one, but trust me, the craziness doesn't stop here. I have all sorts of really wacky stuff planned, especially the current electric rideable project that I'm working on. If you want to see all the weird backpacking trips and EV camping trips I get up to with my electric vehicles, click the card.